Focus. Haha! So, welcome to the funeral. What has happened in the last week? I'm gonna go with, I mapped out the world of my webcomic. It's about some homunculus. Some little girls that were made in jars by alchemists. That's gotten out of control. There's 3 video games. Comic, I mentioned it last week. And it's been a struggle to come up with comedy. So I contacted my good buddy Jonathan Ho, I guess my longtime writing partner. And sure enough, after some Skype chatting and some shared Google Docs, we've come up with some cool story threads. And I think the whole world has become vastly more interesting. It ties into a theme this week because I got into some Game of Thrones books, which made that world more interesting. Yeah, here we go, babbling. Doing something real quick. Real quick is the idea. We'll see how long this episode goes. A taste of the webcomic is that instead of religion, we have magic, and everybody aspires to be part of religion. It's kind of like the Dark Ages, but instead of worshiping the church, people worship the magicians. For some twisty-turny reason, all the wizards live in castles instead of churches. Outside the castles is one giant carnival. I'm really excited about this idea. Ties into the Victor Frankenstein movie I'm going to talk about. If you're not in a castle training to be a wizard, you're out in this circus. There are no wars, but there are farmers, and they fight the plant war. And I wrote up a bunch of stuff about the main character of my game waking up in a test tube. And then Jonathan wrote some other stuff about guys in a tent trying to get people to come inside and pay to see their wonders. Had some fun merging the two. Anyway, I'll stop babbling. Whatever, what else? What happened this week? It turns out my team did not win anything in the Cartoon Network Game Jam. That kind of sucks. But it was cool working with this team of people and waiting for weeks to see if we won anything. And if we did, I was going to buy the new Starfox game for the Wii U. But we didn't. So now I gotta justify not buying that game. Money. I applied to be a part of the PlayStation Indie whatever program, make games for the PlayStation 4. And I've been accepted, and I've been going through, and I don't know how much I can talk about that I gotta check my contract. I'm kind of waiting for that, and welcome to the club, here's what you do first. So either that never happens, or I need to pester those people. So that didn't exactly happen this week. That kind of didn't happen this week. It just kind of occurred to me that nothing's happening on that front. Next segment. Talking about tech. I had this idea I was going to babble about what all motion tracking can be and is, and give this really intricate explanation of accelerometers and gyros, and how the Wiimote came to be and why it's so exciting from a patent perspective, and talk about magnetometers. Wow, it doesn't sound like fun, and it doesn't sound quick. So maybe some future time, if I run out of ideas, that'll be a sign. If there's nothing exciting and new to talk about, I'll talk about something exciting from 10 years ago. But what I thought I'd talk about is Google Cardboard. They did a promo for Star Wars. This is meant to be the BB-8. Anyway, I haven't opened it yet because Star Wars collectible. You undo a box, you slip your phone into it. The phone is showing 2 videos, and the box has 2 lenses in it. VR on your face. When you use Google Cardboard, there's a magnet on the side, and it's like your one action you can do is snap the magnet to click. Whenever I give people demos, they don't flip it fast enough, they pull it slowly and hold it. That kind of sucks. I have this idea. If you've used the Vive with its cool-ass controllers, you get the picture that VR is a lot more than your eyeballs. It's what's exciting about VR is using your hands and your whole body. And so I was obsessing a bit about using the cardboard and trying to get more of a hand input. See, Google's doing a lot of demos with this where they strap a Project Tango super camera on top, which is like a small Kinect for your PC. They have one that's like the size of this. But it costs $100, and who's really going to buy that? The whole point of Google Cardboard is it's like the $10 VR that leverages a phone you already have with you. So how can we do something like that to bring more interaction? That was my obsession. In theory, I was going to try to develop this on Friday for this hackathon, but now it looks like just getting Google Cardboard apps to compile will be a big win on Friday. So this probably isn't going to come together, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to claim it. Here's my idea. There's a whole other thing called Augmented Reality, and what you can do is you can use the camera right here on your phone, and the camera's looking out, and you can have something the camera sees, like a marker. It could be a business card. This plan I have is to use my business cards. So if it sees this exact image, focus, fail. If it sees this image, it can know exactly where the phone is in relation to the image. And usually you use this to make something like a dog skull appear, or a cat skull, or any number of skulls. My coworker Nick's doing stuff with skulls. There's a lot more to AR than skulls, theoretically. You can make something appear, and then it feels real, because as you move your hand physically, it interacts with the camera, and it makes it appear like on your couch next to you. Imagine skulls on the couch. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about AR. The point is, you know where your phone is in relation to an item. You might say, aha, you'll do that with your Google Cardboard app. But actually, I think Google Cardboard, showing 2 video streams, is probably already killing your phone. Should get a shorter chair so I can stretch my neck out and feel skinny. And so my big idea, is that with a second phone, I happen to have a lot of phones. Ironically, not here in front of me. I'm going to go grab one. For the purposes of demonstration, I present you with an old iPhone. Basically, I can have a second phone that's using this augmented reality trick. And what I can do is with my Google Cardboard, my phone inside, I can take my fiducial marker, it's called, which fiducial means can be seen in video. So the marker can be seen in video. Put my marker, my fiducial marker, on my Google Cardboard, and then I can use its camera to see the fiducial marker on the cardboard that has my first big juicy camera in it. And now my second phone is doing all the work of figuring out this 3D relationship, and it becomes my hand controller is the idea. So there's a classroom with 30 students and they all use their phone. Well, here's an idea. They could buddy up and you could have 15 pairs where one student's phone is in the main device and the other student's phone is the hand controller, and they can just trade off halfway through. So I'm totally psyched to see if this works, because now I have a second hand controller and I have a touchscreen, and so in theory I can have multiple finger inputs. One kind of holds your thumb, I think. Anyway, whatever, but I'm excited to experiment with this. That's my big tech idea for the week. If I can get this fucker to work, we can make Google Cardboard way more rad, basically. Because you'll be holding the fucker, patented, trademark. You'll be holding your phone and your cardboard and flicking your magnet. Meanwhile, a whole secondary phone is your hand, and you're throwing frisbees, and you're using magnifying glasses to burn people that are tanning. Which sounds weird, right? But if I get my Hackathon VR tour of OSU together, that might make more sense. The books. I was going to talk about this big bastard of a book. The World of Ice and Fire, The Untold History of Westeros, The Game of Thrones. Finally finished reading the last few pages. What's cool about this book, it feels like you are a Meister when you're reading this book. I'm going to hold it up. I'm going to prop it up. Stick it in the shot. Oh, and there's garbage in the shot again. It will guard the video. You feel like a Meister, so you kind of pour over it, and it feels like you're reading some ancient tome, and there's tons of little puzzling details hidden throughout. But I think it's all a trick. I think the books are riddled with puzzles, and part of getting you to not notice all these setups in the puzzles is giving you dense lists that kind of make your eyes glaze over. In this book, they have long lists of cities and names. It starts the ancient history of, like, giants and the children of the forest. I think they're called shit. I'm tired. They mention, like, White Walkers riding ice spiders. It's like, oh, is that happening in the show sometime? But then the book goes into basically the lineage of the Targaryens. It starts with Aegon the Conqueror, and then it goes through 300 years up until our current shenanigans in the show and the books. And what's cool is as you read it, you start to glaze over with like Aegon, Arion, Garion, Aegon the Fourth, Aegon the Third, Garion the Unworthy, and you're like, oh, what? Who cares? It's actually really cool stories with each of these guys, so that's one reason to care. But at some point you start realizing that, oh, we're talking about people that are on the show, and that's a really thrilling moment. Anyway, they jump around and cover all the areas, which helps me. I can keep track of way more cities now from the show and all this. And then they kind of say, well, that's Westeros, and they go east, and they cover Essos. The way it's written, you eventually realize that Essos is way cooler than Westeros. There's also a whole thing called Sothrios, which is like South America, and random islands there that we'll never hear about on the show. But they have cool stories. There's a whole island of butterflies, just hundreds of butterflies and a peaceful people. But it turns out that anybody who goes to this island tends to die. There's some weird plague, and then there's rumors that it's caused by this black and white butterfly that's poisonous. But pirates have found that if you only go there for an hour or two, you'll be okay, which is just long enough to, like, steal some slaves. The wealth of cool fantasy ideas in this is awesome. So, it's a cool book. I was going to mention 2 ideas that I'm excited about, just to stake my claim again, my nerd gold. They talk about Braavos, and they're emphasizing the coinage of Braavos. Braavos is like the bank island, and I would bring it up. Oh, it might actually be right there. And as they're talking about the coin of Braavos, one can't help but remember in the show that a coin was given to a little girl named Arya, and it gave her passage to Braavos. But the coin was to get in with these the nameless ones, this assassin's church. I was talking to my coworker, Mike Miller. What's the point of Arya's storyline? It's like she's off doing some assassin shit, forgetting her name, and being boring. How's that going to pay off? All these old free cities in Essos, they're way old, and they have these ancient secret societies like the Illuminati. Okay, oh, the Bank of Braavos and the nameless assassins are one and the same. It's all together. We think we've been watching Arya become a pointless, nameless assassin, and that's spooky. But actually, we've been seeing her, perhaps, rise up the ranks of this whole banking problem. And it also implies like this is how the bank has stayed powerful and gotten their debts settled, as they probably have close ties with these assassins. And I don't know if they've addressed it directly in the books or not. I'll reread them all someday when they're all fucking written. It occurred to me that Varys, being a bald dude, well, if you read the lineage here, you'll find out that amongst the Aegon's Targaryens, there were Viserys Targaryens, and Viserys and Varys, kind of similar. So maybe Varys is a Targaryen, and that'd be cool, right? Cool book, I'd recommend it. Feels like fake leather. Nice. So, let's just keep moving quick. 300 Rise of an Empire, I was babbling last week about Zack Snyder. I was curious of his writing, and I forgot to mention this guy, Kurt Johnstad, who co-wrote 300. He also wrote that Navy SEAL movie, like acted by Navy SEALs, so military bro. Maybe not a bro, but a military dude, and Zack Snyder's kind of military-ish. His movie's got military things, so there's like a whole aspect of Zack Snyder that I don't really understand. And this guy, Kurt Johnstad, is, I think he's co-credited with writing the script for the upcoming Aquaman movie. So that'll be weird, right? Anyway, the movie I want to talk about was Victor Frankenstein. Man, I got a lot of notes. Great aesthetic. I love the focus on, like, meat. A lot of Frankenstein movies are focused on sewing the dead together or grave robbing. Feels kind of like zombies. What's cool about Frankenstein is not that it's a zombie. It's that it's meat. It's like a meat sculpture. That's part of what's so ghoulish and spooky about it. It's doctor surgery gone bad stuff. I don't know how to critique it really fast. I should have perhaps thought about this a little more before I turned on the recording button. There's a weird slow-mo at the start that made me think of the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr., and I was like, sure enough, here's something that I think is regrettable that they probably did for studio reasons and nobody's proud of. They like jump over a wagon thing and go near a fire and it's all in slow-mo, like but it's not that cool. Luckily they stopped doing that, I believe, for the rest of the movie. So weird. I wonder if they actually shot that just to impress the studio and then we're like, let's not do that anymore. That's fucking retarded. Wow, I have a lot of bizarre trivia notes. Finnegan was the bad guy, and I have a note. Is this a reference to Finnegan's Wake? Is Max Landis writing this movie like as a reaction to Roman Coppola kind of making Bram Stoker's Dracula for and with his dad? Probably reaching out there a lot. I don't know if these guys know each other. Probably not. Whatever. Bad note. Evaluating the movie, I think it's easy to agree with most of the other critics that the ending was dumb. It's a pretty sweet movie, and it's meant to be a prequel to the Frankenstein monster that we all know. The movie literally starts in the first few seconds saying, you know the Frankenstein's monster bullshit, and we're not going to talk about it. You're like, oh, good. And then they go to a point, and then they just say, spoilers, they just say, fuck it. And here's that monster part. Let's just jump ahead to the monster part and show you, and the movie will end with the monster stuff. And after all this actually kind of interesting character business, to jump ahead to some castle with a monster, and it's just totally dumb. They're fighting the monster, and they're shouting out action one-liners. There's one where they're like, remember, 2 hearts! And it's like, fuck you. I was struck by the end of the movie thinking, it's too bad they wrote this weird ending that left it open for a sequel. It doesn't feel like the movie ended. And then I went online, and I like to read up like interviews about the making of the movie, see if anybody wants to explain, some explaining to do. And the first thing I read was the main actor, Harry Potter, I can't remember his name right now, saying that the original script was neat, but too wordy, and the ending was too open for a sequel, so they had to change that. It's this weird, like, you sure you didn't shoot that? That's kind of a review, right? What I'd like to do with a movie review is point out what should have happened in the movie, because I have these thoughts. The point of the movie is that it's about Igor, and the point is that Igor is a hunchback with no name in the circus. That's the start. And then he gives him the name Igor that he just got from some guy, basically. And the movie starts with Victor Frankenstein saying, my name is, and they just cut to a title card, Victor Frankenstein. They don't actually say it. And, like movie-making spoiler, the movie ends also with, like, I love you. The letter was signed by Victor Frankenstein. Credits. It's a weird ending, because the point of the movie is that Victor is only doing all this because his older brother died and he wants to atone for it. And when they make the goofy monster, who looks great, they make the monster, Victor like looks at him and goes like, "You're not Henry. My heart is broken. I'm an idiot. Why was I doing all this? I gotta kill you now." And then they fight him. And they kill his ass. And then they tack on this weird ending where Victor is like, "Traveling through Europe now, Igor, and I love you. We should make some more monsters. I love you, Victor Frankenstein." And it's like, what? What the fuck? What happened to the whole lesson of like, I should never have done that, and my whole life is a lie, and I'm not going to do this anymore? That's what I mean, where it feels like they just wrote an ending that says like, maybe sequels, and we could make more money? Is that cool? I don't know if they made any money on the movie, sadly, but it was a really cool movie, and they should have made money. So here's my big idea for this movie. They should have ended the movie by Victor saying, "You know how I gave you that bullshit name, Igor? Why don't you take the name of my brother, Henry? We can be brothers. Welcome to the family, Henry Frankenstein." Doo, doo, doo. Or if Victor was like, fuck it, I hate myself. I don't want to be Victor Frankenstein anymore. Why don't you be Victor Frankenstein? And so it ended with Igor himself saying like, "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Victor Frankenstein." I think that'd been sweet. I don't know, it just feels like the movie kind of wanted that. And then instead did something else. There's a whole scene with Charles Dance, I think famously the bad guy in Last Action Hero, with the crazy contact lens eyes. He just comes in as Victor Frankenstein's dad and does what he does on Game of Thrones. He's like the disapproving, cold-ass dad. And that's it. He's not back in the movie ever again. You're like, what? Well, that could have been a setup for, like, he likes Igor more. Igor's trying harder to be a respectable member of the family. I don't know. They could have just set up more that Victor's like, fuck it, why don't you be Victor Frankenstein instead of me, Igor, and my dad likes you more anyway. I don't know. The dad could have disowned Victor. I guess that's my note. Dad could have said, "You're done. You're crazy, and I don't want you to be my son anymore. You ruined the family name." Could have taken the name away from Victor Frankenstein. Or there's a lot of stuff they could have done with the name. That's where I'm going with. Arguably, if Igor did become Victor Frankenstein, you could have ended the movie with the monster killing his kind of wasted girlfriend, the trapeze artist, and then Igor deciding he's on a mission now. He's going to bring her back to life. He's going to do all this evil shit because now he's driven by a psychotic urge to cheat death. Whatever. That's kind of, if you read the book, that's part of the book story. It's Frankenstein's wife. Fuck it. Why am I telling you about this book? There's lots of interesting stuff in the movie that is nods to the history of the Frankenstein movies. I saw an interview with Max Landis where he talked about how he went back and watched all the Frankenstein movies to figure out where Igor came from because he's not in the book. There's an actor named Colin Clive who played Frankenstein in the 1931 movie we all kind of know Frankenstein from. He was named Henry Frankenstein in that movie, and so that's why in this movie Victor has an older brother named Henry. I mean, Victor has brothers in the book, but they're not named Henry. They're named Conrad and something else. I was going to rant about Frankenstein because I love the book, and I think I've already talked about this for like 10 minutes, so fuck. There's a popular theory that Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein about her husband Percy, because Percy had written some under the pseudonym of Victor a couple times. I think that's pretty damning evidence, really. There's also, the book starts off with a quote from Paradise Lost, and if you read Paradise Lost, they talk about God himself as the victor. I think that is weak historian bullshit, that would be a reason someone would name a character Victor. It's like, people don't generally do that. Bullshit. Just cut to that. Hey. One other thing I'm going to mention quickly, that supposedly Mary and Percy traveled around Europe because they were rich bastards, and they went near the Castle Frankenstein. There is a Castle Frankenstein, I believe, in Germany, or what ended up being Germany, right? I think back in the 1800s, a lot of stuff wasn't unified yet. Anyway, what's interesting is this castle was known for this famous alchemist, Johann Conrad Dippel. It's like, if you want to make all these movies nowadays where the real story behind Moby Dick is the sailor, and there's a true story behind the story, the real story of Robin Hood, the real story of Dracula. It's like, there is a real story of Frankenstein you could be telling, and it's about Johann Conrad Dippel. And this was a dude who was like a famous alchemist, and supposedly got banished from whatever science-y stuff he was doing because he liked cutting up animals and maybe corpses. He may have been banished from a city for being a grave robber. That is actually, supposedly, according to Wikipedia, the best source ever. That might be bullshit. That might be some stuff people made up. I'm not sure at what point people thought, oh, this guy is a lot like Frankenstein. Let's make up some shit that makes him sound more like Frankenstein. He was a real guy, and he really did work out of a Castle Frankenstein. And Percy and Mary Shelley did travel nearby, so the theory is they probably talked to local folks who might have mentioned Castle Frankenstein. That might have been a big inspiration for the story. Maybe. But whatever the case, somebody needs to make a movie about Johann Conrad. Again, Victor had a brother named Conrad in the book. So, I'm going to mention that Johann Conrad Dippel wrote a dissertation called Maladies and Remedies of the Life of the Flesh. That's your movie title? I don't know. I made a note here that in the book, you should read the book, it isn't exactly sew body parts together in the book. The book is more about like spending a year or 2 years, spending a long time just doing it all from scratch. And there's this implication that he's kind of cracked some alchemist type elixir of life kind of shit. Not exactly like an elixir, but like some secret puzzle to the flesh. He's making this giant because he can't work at normal scale. It's easier if it's oversized. Like when you draw a comic book, you draw it big and then you shrink it and it looks good. But if you drew it at that size, it would look kind of shitty. So you gotta draw it big. He worked on a giant 8-foot body because it was a little easier to stitch those pieces together. And then he needed to shrink ray. That's not true. There's no mention of shrink ray in the book. Point is that the Frankenstein novel is more about creating an immortal being through a secret understanding of life, more than zombies. And it'd been cool if I had remembered and mentioned that at the start of this rant. Oh, okay, and I had one final note that I also would have been cool if I mentioned earlier. Instead of ending with Victor Frankenstein reasserting his name, being, remember the name of this movie. It was my name. Victor Frankenstein. It would have been cool if the movie ended with Igor just rejecting his name and going nameless, and preferring to be a nameless wretch, if you will. Thus, like the Frankenstein monster, although the movie is filled, I think, with heavy-handed like slaps, that Igor is Frankenstein's first creation, his first monster. So maybe I've been too on the nose. I don't know. That's my movie review. Moving on. TV shit. Game of Thrones. Hodor, saying Hodor all the time. Hodor. It would be funny if that was like Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. The horror. I'm not sure if that's an original thought. Oh man, I had this idea the Iron Islands were going to connect around to the Dothraki. Like you got all these pirates with ships and nothing to do. Like they're fucked. They can't invade because they suck. All they can do is use their ships. And then you've got Daenerys over with the Dothraki horse riders. How are you going to get all these horses back to Westeros? And then they burned all her ships. And I was like, holy shit, what if the pirates could like sail west and go around the whole fucking planet? Because maybe they're actually much closer than you thought. And then she'll show up there on the Dothraki shores and Daenerys will cut a deal. And boom, pirate dudes are going to deliver the Dothraki into Westeros right at the right moment, right as the ice war is happening. We got Dothraki on our ships. We're all buddies, pirates and horse... Nah. In that book I mentioned, makes it very clear that the Dothraki are not like on the coast. Like there's so much more going on as you go east. It's nuts. So that theory sucks. So I'm glad I mentioned that. That was cool. And also it was real fast. And I really kept the segment short. Take a shame drink. There was another Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode, and it was shit. And I don't want to talk about it. I really didn't enjoy any part of it. But there was Person of Interest is back. It was rad. And that's a show that kind of is not funny, so it's not that fun. It's like there's a lack of heart or a coldness to it. But besides that, one huge problem. It's a totally awesome science fiction show about AI and problems and security and government surveillance. All these problems. And so it was an interesting episode because it started off with this rad PJ Harvey song, I'm guessing. Actually, I should check that. It's just something he likes to do where it just start off with like a rad montage for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of just like, this song is rolling and it's awesome. And you just bam. Crazy action shit is happening. Everyone's a badass. God, it was good stuff. But then the rest of the episode happened, and there was some janky weirdness. They bust in on some Russian hacker dude, which for some reason I'm not a fan of. It's kind of like a spy show thing. He's just like, Russians got to be rad hackers, and they got to have connections and be underworld. Feels like a weird cliche I've seen a million times. Our computer genius steals a bunch of PS3s from the Russian hackers, because they have hundreds of them, and then is able to network them into a Linux supercomputer to save their AI. And there's this weird tension where I spent almost the entire episode thinking like, wait, is that as retarded as it seems? No, that's possible. You know, actually that's kind of interesting. Maybe that's smart. Or is it dumb? Why are these PS3s and not PS4s? PS3 did have a moment where, like, their crazy CEO at the time, Yoshi, I could almost pull out of my ass the name of that guy, crazy motherfucker, that announced the PS3 and then gave a press conference where he kind of famously talked about how it wasn't going to play games so much as secretly, when you weren't paying attention to it, it was going to network with other PS3s to, like, cure cancer. And then they didn't fire him exactly, but they quickly after that, Sony kind of shuffled him and said, like, he's off the PS3, and we love him, and he's on the board, kind of, but he can't vote, and fuck that guy. Anyway, new people are in charge. This is right around the PS3 kind of ate shit right when it came out and cost $1 million. It cost $600 when everything else costs a lot less. Anyway, that's all I could think about when watching Person of Interest is like, wow, why don't you get a supercomputer? If you can get hundreds of PS3s through magic Russian hackers that happen to conveniently be next to us when we need them, why can't you magic up something better? I don't know. Maybe the idea was that its PS3s are hip. It made me think of Chappie as well. And that bizarre idea that they like downloaded an AI to, I think, a PS3 as well. What the fuck is going on with all this PS3 stuff? Is this Sony forcing it, pushing it? Is there a memo from Sony like, if you could work PS3 computing power into your AI science fiction, that would be delightful? Weird. I wonder if we'll ever know why that happened. Moving on. I was going to talk about what I'm working on. You know what I was going to talk about? I was going to talk about a big idea. I didn't do this last week because my tape cut out. The big idea. I had this big idea of a video game called CopApocalypse. There's a game that came out called The Division. Basically, post-apocalypse kind of thing. Again, some disease, I think, wiped everybody out, and so you gotta just take guns and you gotta group up and murder other dudes, and you all gotta look kind of hip, wear some hoodies, you know? But it feels like this is a game you see a lot. I've watched a lot of Walking Dead, and I do absorb a lot of post-apocalypse stuff. So I was thinking, you know what? I would love to see a post-apocalypse where the apocalypse is that, imagine if you will, a post-apocalypse where 9 out of every 10 human beings has become a cop. So anyway, I thought it'd be kind of funny, but I mean, just as instead of walking down the street with all these fucked up cars people abandoned that don't run anymore, what if you walk down the street and it's just cop car after SWAT van after like old-timey cop car from the 60s? Interesting. You are a freedom fighter, and you are one of the few people that hasn't become a cop, and you are trying to sneak down the street, and like, maybe you just want to get married, or maybe you just want to like be black and not get killed, but you're trying to go from point A to point B, and instead of zombies or the usual kind of stealth where if they see you they lumber after you or they report you, it's like they will shoot you and you don't have a gun. That sounds scary and hard. Maybe I don't play enough Metal Gear Solid, maybe that's already a huge genre, but I feel like stealth is, if you fuck up, you can always just murder everybody. So in this case, if you fuck up, 10,000 cops are all over you. It's a major problem. You discover a disguise where you could put on a cop disguise and pretend to be a cop for a while, as you do. There could be a twist where, well, you gotta prove yourself as a cop to some other cops, and so maybe you gotta arrest the guy. Maybe at some point you gotta be a dirty cop. So these are dirty fucking cops in the cop apocalypse. So maybe you gotta execute a prisoner. That I think would be the major turning point in the game. Is do you actually execute him, or do you reveal yourself and go to jail yourself? Either way, you're going to jail for the next segment of the game. But if you actually murdered him, like the game would just rub in your face, a little extra shit on your face to make you feel bad. And then it would become revealed when you're in jail that half these cops are freedom fighters putting on the cop outfit and doing some cop shit just to sneak through and make you feel bad. You paid money to, feel bad. That'd be the... Anyway, just an idea. Thought it'd be cool. You can take that idea and make it. Yeah, it's my gift. So, let's wrap it up. The final segment here is going to like what's coming next, what's on the slab. I need to make the art for some webcomics. Hoping fun lens flip. There's a hackathon coming up on Friday, and in theory I'm making a cardboard app of a campus tour. I'm hoping to call it Teleport to OSU. Focus on that teleportation idea. But I'm working with a team of people, and I'm probably going to be busy trying to program or sort out large-scale 3D polygon rendering in Unity, and how the hell does that work? So I might just defer the whole project to the team of people who maybe aren't as technical. See how that goes? I don't know. Anyway, it's going to be an interesting full-day event of fun, and now we're meeting to prepare for it. To me, it's fun if we don't spend a lot of time worrying about it. I'm probably picturing a very different hackathon than everybody else. There's a t-shirt. It's the first thing I need to do for Solid Fuel, and in theory, this whole podcast may or may not kind of slide into being about Solid Fuel Studios business. I made a shirt based off Daphne from the Wizard's Den, although the star of the game is not going to show up in the webcomic for a while. It's coming. So, fuck that. I still have a t-shirt based around Daphne, who you play in the video game, and I gotta get this t-shirt done and up. Oh shit, maybe I should flash it up, because now I can't see if it's on camera. So now I need to take it into Illustrator and trace it. Speaking of which, this is a big plastic shit on my chest. This is a Kickstarter shirt for the Goon. Should I talk about my shirt? Join me in celebrating the public library. Keep watching. Oh, hey, I should say, subscribe to the video. Subscribe and show me that you support art. It's not happening in this video, is it? You can immediately unsubscribe, and I don't think I'll ever know, but I'll feel like, wow, look at all these subscribers, it's going good. Thanks for your patience. This is me learning how to do vlogging stuff, and this is Pitt trying to be in focus.